Hello, this is Mrs. Schuver, and if you're a little bit confused by this particular sheet or lesson, I don't blame you. Originally, it's not listed on your packet title sheet. However, after looking at the other word problems on page lesson 2, these particular problems needed a little bit more time. So, if you read right here along with me, this page has been added to the video tutorials. However, these problems are located in your packet of lesson 2, page 3. So this is just a continuation of that lesson. And you're going to notice it's ordered 8, 7, and 6. And I did that intentionally, starting with the least difficult to the most difficult. These particular word problems are going to require a little bit more TLC. We're going to have to spend a little bit more time on the details. So that's why I wanted to separate them. So here we go. Number 8 says Stan's Steakhouse has a server to cook ratio of 5:2. The total number of servers and cooks is 42. How many servers does Stan's Steakhouse employ? So let's highlight some of the important information that we're given. I'm noticing they gave us a server to cook, orders important ratio of 5:2. So that would be 5 servers to every 2 cooks. Then they mentioned the total number of servers and cooks is 42. So they're giving us a total. The final question, and this one I'm going to underline, how many servers does Stan's Steakhouse employ? So first of all, I'm going to write this off to the side. This is what they've given us in the opening statement. They've mentioned servers to cooks. That's what we're talking about. And they mentioned 5:2. So we could write a ratio. However, they also go on to say a total number of servers and cooks. So both of them is 42. And then they want to know the total number of servers that the steakhouse employs. So as I look at this, we're going to need, they've given us the total number. So we're going to need the total. And the question is how many servers. So we're going to try to find the servers. So we're going to use bits and pieces of this. They mentioned the ratio of servers to cooks, so servers was 5. So we know there's 5 servers, but they didn't tell us what the total was, except for 42, meaning all the employees. So the ratio, however, we can use these two numbers to decide, okay, if there's 5 servers to 2 cooks, then the total must be 7. That would be adding the 5 that they give us of server to the 2 cooks. So now we have a server to total ratio. Next, they mentioned that the total number of servers and cooks is 42. So we're going to put this here. And what we're trying to figure out is how many servers. So we're going to put an X there. And so now we have our proportion set up and we can start cross multiplying. My personal preference is to start with the butterfly wing that has the X in it. So that'd be 7 times X, which is 7X. Then the butterfly body reminds me to write the equal. And then 5 times 42. If you want to stop and use your calculator, you can pause this video and you say 5 times 42. Hopefully you came up with 210. Now we're going to solve this proportion. Solve this equation for x, and x equals 30. So let's see if that makes sense. If I had a total of 42 employees, 30 of them would be servers, and that does make sense. If I look at my ratio 5:7, 30 to 42 is a reasonable answer. So the answer is 30 servers. So now let's go on to question 7. Problem number 7 says Northside High School is having a spaghetti dinner fundraiser, In order to advertise, students place flyers on neighborhood doors. Margie hands out 120 flyers in 2 hours. Jackson hands out 18 flyers in 15 minutes. Who is able to pass out flyers at a faster rate? Then it says defend your thinking. And when you see this, you can either do that verbally, but because we're mathematicians, we prefer to show the math and defend it by showing how we arrived at our answer. So now let's highlight the information that was given. I noticed that Margie hands out 120 flyers in 2 hours, and Jackson hands out 18 flyers in 15 minutes. And right away, I can see there's a little bit of a problem because they give us Margie's information in terms of hours, and they give us Jackson's information in terms of minutes. So there's actually 2 ways we could do this. We're going to start so that we can compare who has a faster rate. We have to keep the rate in the same units. So I'm going to start by doing flyers. How many flyers? The number of flyers, I should say. So I'm going to put the number of flyers, and we're talking about hours. That's the first bit of information. So we can find Margie's by taking 120 flyers in 2 hours. If we divide 120 flyers by 2 hours, that's going to tell us how many flyers per hour. So 120 divided by 2 would be 60 flyers per hour. So now we know the rate that Margie can hand out the flowers in. And that is a unit rate because it's now for 1. Now let's look at Jackson's information. And Jackson's a little bit tricky because we do know the flyers. We know that he passed out 18 flyers, but we need to know what that 15 minutes is in terms of hours. We can't use different units of measure. We have to convert it to hours. So here's what we do know. 15 minutes would be out of 60 total minutes in an hour. So 15 out of an hour, and we can convert this 60 to minutes. And if I did that, that would make sense. 15 is part of a whole hour. If I reduce it by dividing by 15, I'm going to get 1/4. And you may have heard before that 15 minutes is a quarter of an hour. So I need to divide this 18 by 1/4. Now, since you're at home, you might not have access to a scientific calculator. If you did, you'd just take 18 divided by 1/4. But since you might not have a calculator, when I'm using division and I'm using fractions, you might recall talking about this last year, that I use keep it, change it, and then flip it. So this would really be 18 times 4/1, and 4/1 is 4. So 18 times 4 would give me 72, and that would be flyers per hour. So Jackson rate is 72 flyers per hour. So Jackson is passing out flyers at a faster rate, and we can say because he can pass out 72 flyers per hour. Now let's real briefly talk about how else we could have set this up. I'm going to scoot this up if I can. Hopefully you can still see that. If we decided to start this all over and we decided that we were really going to just write this as flyers, but we wanted to use minutes, we could also do this way. We still know that Margie hands out 120 flyers, but this time her information is given in hours. So we know that she has 2 hours, but if I need it to be minutes, I'd have to say 2 times 60 minutes for every hour that she passes them out, and that would be 120. So her minutes would be 120. We would then write Jackson's information as 18 in 15 minutes. So now we need to divide both ratios to find out the rate. 120 divided by 120 would be 1. And so that tells us that Margie can pass out 1 flyer per minute. And then Jackson, if we took 18 divided by 15, we'd get 1.2 flyers per minute. So either way, Jackson still can pass out flyers at a faster rate because he's passing out more flyers either per minute or per hour. So let's move on to the last problem. Let's read through problem number 6. An amusement park sells child and adult tickets at a ratio of 8 to 1. On Saturday, they sold 146 more child tickets than adult tickets. How many tickets did the amusement park sell on Saturday? So this one is a little bit of a doozy. I'm going to be honest. This one is going to require some skills you probably have not been exposed to yet in 7th grade. We usually work on variables on both sides at the end of 7th grade. Now, there are certainly other ways to do that than the way I'm going to show you, so you might be able to figure this out using a different method, and I would love that if you have a different method you can show me. I'm going to highlight some information. They mentioned that the ratio of child tickets to adult tickets is 8 to 1. And on Saturday, they mentioned they sold 140 more child tickets than adult. And that's where the big problem is. If they just would have said they sold 146 child tickets, but they use this word more. And that's going to cause us a little bit of trouble. They also mentioned that they want to know how many tickets did the amusement park sell. So let me try to see if I can highlight that for us. How many tickets did the amusement park sell? So I'm going to have to use this. So they want to know a total. The very first thing I would suggest doing is writing down the fact that they want to know the total tickets, but we don't know anything about the adult tickets that they mentioned. We just are given that they sold 146 more child tickets. So on Saturday, I'm going to write let X equal the adult tickets sold on Saturday. So here's what we know from the ratio that they gave us. They mentioned that the ratio of child tickets to adult tickets is 8 to 1. And if I let X equal the amount of tickets that were sold on Saturday, then I'm going to put X. And this is all of the tickets sold on Saturday. So using my logic, if X is the amount of tickets for adult tickets on Saturday, and they mention that there's 147 more child tickets sold on Saturday, then whatever my number is for the adult tickets, I'm going to have to I'm going to have to add 147 more. So now we're going to try to cross multiply. We're going to take 8 times X. So that's going to be 8 times X, my equal sign, and then 1 times X plus 147. If we use our logic, 1 times anything would be that anything. So we're going to say that this is X plus 147. Now here's where this may be different. You may not have seen this before where we have variables on both sides. I have 8x here, and I have 1x plus 147. In 8th grade, we spend time learning that we really don't want to see variables on both sides. So we're going to eliminate this 1x by taking the entire term. We're going to take that 1x away, but in algebra we have to balance our equation by doing the same thing on both sides. So now we're left with 7x on this side, and because we've eliminated this, we have 147. Then we're going to divide by 7 on both sides, leaving x equals 21. So now let's refer back up to our definition. It said let x equal the adult tickets sold on Saturday. So now we have one piece of our puzzle. We know that there are 21 adult tickets sold on Saturday. Now if we can figure out how many child tickets were sold, then we can find the total. So let's see what we know regarding the child tickets. Well, they mentioned to us that there are 147 more child tickets than adult tickets. And since we now know the adult tickets is 21, we can add 147 to that, and that's going to equal 168 child tickets. So to complete this, since they ask how many tickets did amusement park sell on Saturday, well, they sold 21 adult tickets plus 168 child tickets, and we now have a total of 189 tickets. Whew! This was quite the beastly problem. So this is 189, excuse me if I said another number, tickets total. So there we did it. We tackled a really challenging problem. See you next lesson.